Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about the print and print line function. To start up, we'll type void setup and void draw. And if you saw the last video in which we discussed variables, you should be able to understand what this statement is. In case you don't know, it's an initialization statement. Here we're initializing the variable x with the value 100. Now the print function is pretty simple in what it does. The print instruction, we call this a function because it uses the open parentheses and closed parentheses, and it takes in a value. The print function prints whatever is in between the parentheses to the console window. The console window is this window that has a black background down here. If we run, you'll see that the print function prints out the value 100. Now, let's create another variable, call it y, and give it the value -100. Okay. Inside the print function, we're going to add the value of x to the value of y. The sum should be equal to 0, and indeed, when we print out the sum does come out to 0. The print function is also useful for printing out characters and strings. For instance, let's create a character and let's call it my car. And let's give it the value $sign. Let's get, I'll name that my dollar. My hash. We'll give it the hash symbol. So the print function here, if we type my dollar and we run the program, it'll print out the $sign. Now here's a curious thing. What happens when we do my dollar plus my hash? Print out 71. Why is that? That's because in ASCII, I will open up an ASCII table. You can do that just by Googling. So if you go to Google and you look up ASCII table and go to the first link, find a table that looks like this. And if you take a look, the $sign has the decimal value. Let's look for the dollar character. Dollar character is the dollar symbol that's in red. Excuse me. So here you can see that there's the dollar symbol, and it has the decimal value 36. And then the hash symbol. The hash symbol has the value 35. 35 plus, oh, I'm sorry, the hash symbol has a value, yeah, that's right. The hash value has a value 35, the dollar symbol has a value 36. If you were to take their sum is equal to 71. Excuse me. And that's what happens. So by default, when you use the plus symbol and you're adding two characters, you're going to add the decimal value that corresponds to those characters. You're not going to add the characters themselves. And so if you wanted to display the dollar symbol and the hash symbol down in the console window, what you need to do is you need to use the single quotes. And you can use the plus symbol on the single quotes to print it out one after the other. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe it's not the single quotes. I believe it's the comma. There we go. So by default, when you print with a comma using these symbols, the symbol will appear with a space, and then the succeeding symbols that you give it. This way you can also use the variables to print out those symbols. So my dollar will print out the $sign, and my hash will print out the hash sign. You'll see the same result here. Okay. So one other way One other function that the print function has is to print out strings. And we'll use it to print out hello world. I'm Min. So here we've initialized the variable myString with that string. Here we're going to print out myString. There it is. Hello world, I'm Min. Okay, and that's it for the print function. You can use the comma and the plus symbol to do a variety of what's called concatenation. Concatenation is a word that means putting one after the other to combine. For instance, let's create two strings. Let's call this string my second string. Let's call it space, what is your name? Okay, and in here in the print statement, we're going to add my string to my second string. What this will do is, well, I'll run it first and I'll let you see what happens. So here's the output below. My string gets printed first, and then my second string gets printed second, immediately after my string. So my string begins hello world, I'm Min, with a dot, with the period there, and my second string begins what is your name? So here up to here, that's the my string, and from here to the end, that's my second string. Now it's important to have this space, because if you don't, the print function is going to print immediately afterward. The print function is going to print my second string, so this entire string immediately after this string, so that the result looks like this. And I'm just gonna call it string my third string. Hello world. What is your name? And you'll see that in a second. Actually, you'll see that the outputs are identical. So first we'll print that out. What is your name? And then here we're going to print out my third string. There you go. The result is identical. That's because if when you concatenate, when you put one word or one string after the other, the strings are put there, are substituted verbatim. So whatever's in between the parentheses, it's going to put immediately after that the last character on the string before. Okay, and I want to show you one last thing about the print function and about the character in general. So when you press the enter key, that generates a new line, right? That new line is actually a single character. It's an invisible character, the same way that the character space is kind of like an invisible character. For instance, here, this is a character right here. The space is a character. But what you might not know is that the new line, the character that represents inserting a new line is also a character. And the way we represent that is, it's a little bit confusing, but we represent that by using a /n. This is a special character. It's called an escape character because there's this backslash before that, the letter n. This is, believe it or not, it's a little bit confusing because you can see two characters here, but the computer sees this and it interprets it as one single character. In particular, if you go to the ASCII table back here, you could see that on this table there's a character for new line carriage return. New line, here we go. Line feed. They call it a line feed, new line. So this is a character. It's a single character, right? It's under the character column called a line feed, and it has the decimal value 10. Um, Now, I often use this because it's helpful with the print function whenever you want to type, um, whenever you want to put one string underneath another string in a new line. For instance, if I type in the string, this is the first uh, sentence, right? And if I issue another print statement below, directly below, second sentence. If I run this function or this program, you can see that this the first string, the first print statement prints this here, and immediately afterwards, the second print statement immediately follows. Um, that's because that's what the print function does. It prints whatever um, string inside in between the parentheses immediately after the preceding print function. If you want to insert, well, actually, it's better if I demonstrate the character itself. So if I put inside here the new line character, what's going to happen is that after this print statement prints out the first sentence, it's going to print out new line, and then it's going to print out the second sentence, and the result will be different. There you go. So here you can see the first string. Then the computer runs the print new line function, or print, and then the new line character. When it prints the new line character, the cursor moves. That's the imaginary cursor. You can't see it, but it's there. The imaginary cursor moves from this line to the first character of this line, and that's where the cursor is. And when the computer runs this statement, it's going to begin printing at where the cursor left off, which was on this new line. So in effect, this print new line function shifts the cursor from this line to this line. Okay. Now there's a shortcut around this, and the shortcut for printing with a new line is the Println function, and the Println function works like this. Well, actually, I'll show you this way. Print this first sentence. Actually, this I'm going to print out $signs, and then here I'm going to print out hashes. Okay, so if I print this, you'll see that the hashes will follow the $signs. Now, if I print using Println, the effect is that the Println function works exactly like the print function, but it concatenates a new line at the end of it. At the end of this string, it's invisible. So even though it's not here, it's going to be appended. It's going to be concatenated at the end of that string, and the result is that you'll have the hashes printed directly below those $signs. Now keep in mind that what I wrote here is commented out, so the computer will read this line and you'll only see this segment here. It won't actually see this statement. So if I run it, you'll see that it does exactly just that. And it has nothing to do with this. So I could delete this, and you can sort of see that $signs printed here. So that's the difference between the print and the Println function. Now, if I reverse this, what do you think will happen? Well, let's reason it out. So on line 14, you have this print statement printing out that number of hashes, right? So that's what you'll see first. Because we don't have a new line, and because because we don't have a new line character at the end of the hashes, and because this isn't a print line function, you're not going to have that new line character at the end. As a result, the cursor remains on the same line um, after the printing of this function, or after this print function has executed. When we run instruction 15 immediately after function 14, you're going to print this out, and you're going to have a new line character at the end. As a result, that's what you'll see. And that new line character, which inserts a new line, will be inserted after the dollar signs appear. So if we run it, you'll see that. Okay. To prove my point, if we print another message, I know that this print message, even though it's not a print line function, I know this message will appear on the line immediately after the dollar sign. Because it will appear after the dollar sign here, because this new line, which was left by this print function, makes it so that the cursor moves to the next line, and then the printing, which is done on line 16, will resume, and you'll see this is a test message, and you'll see it appear like so. There you go. Okay, so the print line function leaves the slash n character at the end. To prove my point, I can also have the print line function print out a second new line. Okay, so this time around you'll have this, and that's because this segment here comes from this print line statement, and so after the dollar sign you're going to print out one line, and then because this is a print line function, you're going to this function is going to append another new line at the end. So this new line is this new line here. The second new line comes from the fact that this is a new line function. As a result, the first new line will shift the cursor from this line to the next line. The second new line will then shift the cursor again to the next line, so that it looks like this. And then after the new lines have been sorted out, this print function runs, and it prints out this is a message where the cursor left off. Now after the second new line, the cursor will begin here, 2 lines below the lines with the hashes and the dollar sign, and the printing of this is a test message appears. If we run that, the output is just as we expect. And that's all for this video. I apologize for taking 18 minutes, but it's a good thing to know how these print functions work. Okay. We'll end this video here.